As John just said, this is recommended draft policy ARIN 2019-10 inter RIR M&A. And my, it's lagging a little bit there, sorry. So the history of this policy proposal, Carrie Richards and I are the advisory council shepherds. The proposal was submitted a year ago last April, on April 9th, as Proposition 270. Became a draft policy on May 21st, 2019, recommended 24th of September 2019, and presented at ARIN 44. The last version contains updates for clarity that came out of a working group and did some language smithing. Staff and legal review. Staff understands the intent of the recommended draft policy is to clarify handling M&A transfer between RIRs that have compatible transfer policies. The proposed change would not be a change from current practice, but the policy change would make our implementation of the current policy clearer. Staff comments. The updated text in 8.4 more accurately clarifies staff interpretation of how M&A transfers are processed. Staff suggests changing the second bullet under conditions on recipient of the transfer to read specified recipients within the ARIN region must meet the transfer requirements as defined in section 8.5 to clarify that M&A recipients are outside the scope of 8.5 policies. The text is clear and understandable and can be implemented as written. Legal assessment was that while ARIN staff has been handling these situations successfully, the proposed policy change would not materially increase ARIN's legal risk and should be considered if consistent with the community's intent for ARIN's handling of these requests. Resource impact is minimal, could be implemented within 3 months. The following would be needed in order to implement: staff training, updated guidelines and internal procedures, and standard documentation updates. All right. So this is the title slide for the AC deck, inter RIR M&A. The problem statement is that when M&A activity takes place, it takes place without regard to where the business's assets are domiciled or situated. And the surviving legal entity can be in another location. Could be on another continent, and it may serve everybody's interests to have the servicing of the number resources be moved to a different RIR. So here are some examples. What if a company has decided to discontinue service in the ARIN region? They shut down the offices, let the employees go, and no more customers in the ARIN region, but the number of resources are redeployed elsewhere in its global footprint. So there's ARIN domiciled, if you will, number of resources that are currently being used worldwide. Another example is if a global company has divested its assets in the ARIN region. Again, offices closed, network assets sold, but some ARIN issued resources are still in use outside of the ARIN region. The policy statement, and I would like to draw particular attention since they look the same. The particular change is the last sentence in section 8.4 bullet point, conditions on sources of transfer. This restriction does not include 8.2 transfers is changed to number of resources received as a result of an 8.2 transfer out of scope for the purposes of this restriction. That's the salient difference. As I already read, staff and legal suggests changing the second bullet under conditions of recipient to transfer. We intend to take that as a piece of good feedback and add that before we send it to last call. Any questions?
Any questions for Rob on this proposal? Please, again, either type Q&A or raise your hand and you can speak at our virtual mic.
The moment we don't have any, but we're waiting.
We'll give a few seconds. All right, we have our first.
First, Owen DeLong, ARIN AC, Farsight Security, support as written.
Thank you, Owen. a few more seconds. It took everyone a minute or two to get warmed up on the first proposal. Okay, we're not seeing any questions or feedback, so I'll give it about 50.
Oh.
Just as you say it, I got to just keep doing that, and that will obviously cue people. Go ahead.
Celeste Anderson, Pacific Wave. If a company divests itself of all assets in ARIN region, wouldn't that imply that at least some of the numbering resources are no longer needed to support the ARIN region?
Sure. So I'll give that question to Rob in a second. Just a reminder, Celeste, to give your affiliation and also to give your affiliation to QA. I know you just got to kind of remember. Rob?
I am looking to see if that request is still up there verbatim in one of the windows, and it seems to have disappeared.
I can give it to you. If a company divests itself of all assets in the ARIN region, wouldn't that imply that at least some of the numbering resources are no longer needed to support ARIN region?
So yes, let me. This is unfortunately not going backwards for me. I seem to not have control of the screen anymore. But if we were to,
John, can you help him move back?
There we go. And we're not backing up. There we go. All right. We'll try this one more time. So this slide here, where a company has decided to divest its assets in the ARIN region, bullet point 2 there talks about network and number resources sold off. They may have been transferred along with the network assets. They may have been transferred along with the customers. It's assumed that resources would be deployed outside of the ARIN region, as discussed in the previous slide, sold off, transferred with customers. That the addresses are unlikely in these scenarios to simply just not have a use anymore. Okay. So I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Celeste, if you'll let us know maybe in the text if that answers your question. I see we have the hand has been taken down. Is there anyone else? We'll give another couple seconds here before we go to our poll.
I have a hand.
Okay, we have a hand. Can we go to the hand, please?
Sure.
Say your name and affiliation, please.
Merce, you should be able to talk now.
And if you could speak a little louder, because I think last time when you spoke, it was a little hard for some to hear. So
she's still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, let's do this correctly. My name is Merce Arnold. My affiliation is with the Obsidian Group Incorporated, where I am Vice President of Risk Management and Compliance. This question goes to the method that ARIN uses for providing geographically based identifiers for IPv4 resources. In the process, I'm new here, so I apologize.
Oh, no, don't apologize. We
everything about it. In the process for providing the geographic identifiers that you use, are they assigned to the home base of the owner or the location of the servers?
Rob?
Do you want me to answer that, Paul, or do you want to hand that to John? Or
you first.
Information in Whois is something that we're always looking to have be more accurate, but the actual information that's put in Whois is generally up to the registrant. And so you'll see clusters of stuff if you do a heat map around the corporate headquarters of certain entities. And geodata versus registration data, well, there are folks out there who say that they have a value add for that they have finer grained, more correct, whatever information about them. So I don't know. Maybe I'll defer to John for a more correct answer for what is and isn't in scope.
RS, I'm happy to answer that. So we don't actually provide per se geographic identifiers. We provide IP number resources to parties requesting them and handle the administration of existing blocks within the registry. And the fact that a block is within the ARIN registry doesn't mean necessarily it's used within the ARIN region. We do have parties who are global, who happen to have their resources numbered at ARIN. And we also have parties that are located in the ARIN region who are using resources that they've obtained from other RIRs. So these are not strictly geographic identifiers. It's just a registry system that has 5 regions for convenience of administration.
Yep. So we're going to close the queues in 30 seconds. So if your question is not popped up or your hand is not raised in 30 seconds, that will we will be cutting off there. Hopefully, sorry, that answered the question. Is there anyone else that would like to raise a question? I see we have a Q&A.
Yes, David Farmer from University of Minnesota. Does this policy allow transfer of IPv6 resources to another region in addition to IPv4?
Rob?
It is not meant to change the way that that ARIN currently executes that policy. It is merely meant to make the current practice in the NRPM more clear. And again, I'm going to defer to John on the
Yes.
specifics.
It's actually an excellent question. As Ara said, this doesn't actually change the practice. What it reflects is something that we have to accommodate already, which is that realistically companies reorganize, and we are in a situation where if a company reorganizes in such a way that its resources are outside the ARIN region, we might want to be able to update the registry to reflect that. And it was not 100% clear whether policy allowed that. We do it because we want accurate records. What this policy does not change the circumstances under which we operate, but makes it clear that there's policy supporting it. Again, we don't stop someone from doing a merger and acquisition. They often come to us to want to update the records. It would be nice for us to be able to do so, even in the case where it may reflect an entity outside the region.
Okay. We have the microphones, virtual microphones are now closed. We have one more question. Can we get the question, please?
One more question from Mercedes Arnold. Are the geographic-based identifiers for IPv4 and IPv6 addresses that are tied to the area of the physical server, servers? I'm not actually sure.
Could you address that?
That question seems to be a repeat of her earlier question. I would be happy to if she were to reach out to me. I'd be happy to have an extended discussion with her about that in email.
Okay, perfect. So please reach out to the AC for that. With that, I'd like to thank Rob Seastrom for the presentation, and we are going to go to our poll. So, a little dynamic. So we are going to do the same thing as last time with a bit of an exception. If for some reason or otherwise you're not able to use the native poll functionality in Zoom, we're going to ask you to put your yes or no, please, just a one-word answer in the Q&A. So we're going to do our poll now on ARIN 2019-12. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Sorry, on ARIN 2019-10, inter-RAR M&A. I'd ask all those in favor of the proposal continuing to say in favor, and all those against it advancing to click against, either on the poll or in the Q&A. And we'll leave it open for 30 seconds starting now. Okay, last call, and that closes our poll. And I would ask, when ready, Beverly, if you could give us the results on this proposal.
At the close of the poll, there were 108 attendees. Adding in 2 that we got in separate locations, we had 44 in favor and 2 against.
Okay, that feedback will be provided to the AC for their input.